Hey guys, it's COREROSS. Today we're making a video going over what Dual Front is in Rainbow Six Siege X, which is launching on June 10th. And essentially, Dual Front is a brand new game mode, and it is a 6v6. Normally, Siege's game modes top out at 5v5, but not only that, you'll be playing on a map that's about 4 times bigger than a regular Siege map. And gameplay is also being changed with the removal of the one-shot headshot in this game mode alone. But we'll go over that a little bit later. So first of all, the thing you should know about this brand new 6v6 4 times the size map is it will not work on the older generation consoles, so the PS4 and Xbox One. Dual Front will be limited to PC and the current generation of consoles, so the PS5, the Xbox Series X and S. And this mode will also be part of the free-to-play model that will be starting on June 10th for Rainbow Six Siege, and this means you can play the game and this mode without actually having to pay any money whatsoever. And now that all that's out of the way, let's talk about how this mode actually plays. So first of all, the map itself is called District, and you might think a 4 times bigger map than usual with just 6v6 is going to be quite empty, but at the start of the game, most of the map is locked, as you need to control different areas to open up different regions, allowing you to progress, potentially then pushing you into contact with the enemy in an area that would be considered to be more in line with a normal Rainbow Six Siege map size. But of course, as you move through the map, you're in different areas over time. The map is also symmetrical, which means you only have to learn 50% of this map, as each side, of course, is the same as the other, just with different textures, so it should be very easy to learn this map overall. It also has a mini-map in the top left that you can use to navigate around, and the map itself is split up into 3 distinct areas. With an attack area for your team, which for the enemy team is a defend area, you then have a neutral zone in the middle, and then you have your defend area, which the enemy team is attempting to attack. And then essentially in these attack and defending areas, you have objectives which work a lot like bomb in the normal game mode, except you're putting down something slightly different. It is still basically a diffuser, but it's just called a sabotage unit. And once you're successful in sabotaging your objective, you will then unlock the next area, and as such you will move across the map to the other side and result in eventually getting victory. But there is a curveball objective which will show up in the neutral zone partway through the game. In Siege X's launch, this is going to be to rescue Dokkaebi, and as such, you need to go grab her and take her to your extraction point, which is in enemy territory. And the opposing team has the same objective, but of course has to drop off the hostage in your territory. And whoever is successful at rescuing Dokkaebi then gains bonuses which help them take over the main objectives that they're trying to capture. And the first team to take over all of their main objectives becomes the winner. You also have a selection of attackers and defenders you can play against, and the opposing team also has the same operators to choose from. Which means, for instance, you can be eliminated by Thermite when you're actually playing as Thermite as well, which is quite an odd experience. There's also respawns in this mode, but they're quite slow, so it's really not on par with Call of Duty. The respawns do take some time, but they have added in a mechanic which is quite interesting and quite smart. So when you're spectating your buddies, you can actually drop a drone on their location and then drive around and help them spot enemies, and it's actually quite fun and well thought out, although the long respawn will potentially turn away players who are looking for a more action-packed experience like Call of Duty, whereas this certainly is not a Call of Duty clone or anything like that. It's just way slower paced. And I also mentioned earlier that the one-shot headshot mechanic is also gone, although I'd say this is actually an advantage in this game mode, because if you actually headshot someone in this mode, they'll go into the down but not out state, so injured, and as a result they are not combat effective and have to be revived. And because there's respawns, even if they're sitting there for 1 or 2 more seconds while injured, that's better than actually eliminating them fully and then for them to then respawn quicker. So it's actually kind of handy to just keep them in the down but not out position and leave them there. They can choose, however, to eliminate themselves quicker. Now there is other things in this game mode that are also different from other Rainbow Six Siege modes. So for instance, you can pick attackers and defenders to play as, and they can do everything that normally defenders and attackers can do separately. So an attacker could be reinforcing walls or barricading doors, and defenders can repel. So players have been asking for a game mode that would actually have the attackers and defenders do whatever they want, and you're certainly getting it with this. This also potentially opens up some brand new operator synergies that otherwise would not happen. And one example that Ubisoft shows off is Nomad putting down her traps and then launching people into Capcan traps, which of course you could do with your teammates, which is normally combos that you would not normally see happening. The map itself will also change seasonally as well. So first of all, the actual operator selection that you get is going to actually change throughout the season so that it makes it a little bit different every time. This might help to stop a meta from forming in the actual game mode and keep it fresh, but we'll have to see if that's the case. They also plan every season to change the map. And this is actually planned to bring in story elements. So for instance, Dokkaebi has been captured in the main storyline. So that is why she is the one you can go rescue in this new game mode. But then in the next season, that objective will change to something else. It also means the map itself might change over time. However, there is a downside, which is that this playlist only has one map. So it's possible you might get bored of it quite quickly. So that's going to come down to if they can iterate fast enough and in a good enough way to make this mode stay relevant and enjoyable. And that brings us now to the conclusion, and we're also going to add feedback here as well. And of course, the conclusions will be just the ups and downs of what we talked about and how it all will probably play out. And then the feedback is actually aimed at the developers on just a few tweaks they may want to change before Siege X's launch. So first of all, who is this game mode aimed at? I think it's perfect for brand new players who want to try Rainbow Six Siege, but normally would just be absolutely destroyed in normal gameplay where you're having to learn the maps and the gunplay all in one go, and it's just extraordinarily difficult, especially when you only have one life per round to try stuff out, and it becomes extremely difficult just to get into the game. So having one game mode with one map, which is symmetrical, so you've only got to learn 50% of it, it really is probably going to be a perfect game mode for brand new players to jump in and really have potentially quite a good time. And that'll give you the ability to learn about gadgets, how they interact, how you use them, and the gunplay, and then you can move on from there into the attacker defender game modes, where now you're not trying to learn 3 different things in one go. Now you've learned the basics of the combat, the gadgets, and now you're learning the maps. But not only that, this could be a great game mode for returning players who just find it hard to get back into Siege, or potentially enjoyed the gunplay but didn't enjoy the attacker-defender game modes, and as such, maybe this will actually be something they enjoy better, and potentially this will be the only game mode they play. And then for players who love the traditional attacker-defender gameplay in Siege, I imagine there's a good chance you won't play this at all. Like for me, I'm going to stick with the normal Siege gameplay because that's what I freaking love, and I'm probably going to stick with it. But that's not a downside to this game mode because it's potentially going to open the game up to a whole new audience who might just play this game mode only, or it might be a perfect way to enter Siege and be able to learn it easier than normal. And of course, at least some of those players will migrate over to the traditional attacker-defender Siege gameplay. But let's talk feedback. So first of all, the big concern I have about Siege X is that the way the map is laid out, you have the objectives to the north and the south. So one team is attacking the south objectives, one team is attacking the north objectives. And the problem is if both teams are fully attacking, so 6 players on one team are attacking, 6 players on the other team are attacking, they are completely on the other side of the map from each other. One's on the south and one's on the north, and they never interact throughout the entire game. And it's just whoever captures everything first wins. Now, thankfully, the mid-game optional objective of rescuing Dokkaebi does mix things up and start some conflict between the two teams if they're both hyper-aggressive, but still, it's not the best gameplay if both teams are just hyper-aggressive, which I think will happen at least a good chunk of the time. If we see normal Siege gameplay, there's a lot of players who play very aggressively, and I think playing defensively in this mode will probably be the minority of players. But if you even have 2 players playing defensively, I could see you easily getting the win because of those defensive players just slowing down the attackers. And then a major concern I have is the story elements. So with Siege X's launch, we're going to be saving Dokkaebi as an optional objective. But the problem is it doesn't feel like it's a story element because the people we're fighting are also rainbow operators. and it feels much more like it's just training rather than actually rescuing someone. I would love it if the actual enemy team looked like the lore enemy of the game, so the COREROSS Legion, and that way when I see them, I'm like, oh yeah, that's the enemy. And if they're using like Rainbow Six gadgets like thermite charges, you just have to say in the lore that they stole a bunch when they assaulted Hereford base, and that's why they're using it. And I would totally believe that they are the enemy and I'm actually fighting them as Team Rainbow to rescue Dokkaebi. And of course, for the enemy team, they would visually see me as the COREROSS Legion, so they're fighting for Rainbow against the bad guys. And I think this would play out a lot better than it does right now. And not to mention, you already have the COREROSS Legion outfit from the Hereford base attack that you can just slap on visually onto those characters, and then boom, they are now the enemy. And I think that would work way better, and especially for future story elements as well, I think that would fit better. And then I am concerned about this game mode planning to only have a single map and a single map only. That is a problem for me because I would assume players are going to get bored eventually off this single map, even if it evolves seasonally. I can see players, you know, like a season is 3 months long. So if you're playing one map for 3 months, you're gonna stop playing. And I'm certainly not very trusting that they're going to be adding in significant lore elements and map changes over time. And you know, they'll have to prove it to me that they're going to be able to come in and really transform this significantly from season to season to make it enjoyable in the long term. Now, if they do pull that off, I will totally play this game mode at least a couple of times every season, and that'll be a success if they're able to do that. But anyway, guys, that is the information, the conclusion, and the feedback about this game mode for Siege X. I think it does have a lot of potential and the ability to maybe bring in a whole new audience to Siege that otherwise wouldn't play the normal attacker-defender roles, and this could be quite successful. But there's definitely, of course, concerns, and we'll see how that plays out. We might have more betas before we actually get the full launch, so we'll be able to see if they do tweak anything or improve anything. But right now, I'm quite impressed with it. I remember when the year one roadmap said new game modes would get added, and they were never able to achieve that in year one, and it took them a long time to get new game modes into Siege, and of course most of the time they're just special events. To have something that's new and permanent is really good, and this looks like it's got a lot of potential. So I am impressed. Even though I probably won't play it much, this is a good move and could pay off big time. But of course, could always backfire. We'll have to wait and see. But anyway, guys, I'd love to hear your comments down below along with your feedback and anything you think maybe we should tweak for this game mode going forward. But anyway, guys, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time.